Welcome to Quality Time with MoreSteam. I am your host, Dan Swartwout. First, I want to thank you, our great listeners, for the podcast's recent growth. In operational excellence and continuous improvement, as you know, you have to look at data. And the data on the podcast has been great lately, so thank you. Now, on to today's episode, which comes from a recent MoreSteam webinar featuring our company president, Peg Pennington. You may not know this, but MoreSteam runs live webinars almost every month, and there's a whole library of past webinars available in the resources section at moresteam.com. There is a lot of tremendous practical information in those webinars, plus I facilitate most of them, so there's one more reason to join us live. If you like what you hear today, which I know you will, there is a link in the show notes to the full version of Peg's webinar. The webinar you're about to hear is called Driving Strategic Alignment with the Lean Management System. Peg breaks lean management into 4 connected systems. First, the strategy system, setting a true north and choosing the few big rocks that really matter. Second, the problem-solving system, using value stream thinking and methods like A3 or DMAIC to turn strategy into real change. Third, the daily management system, leader standard work, huddles, and routines that keep you from backsliding. And finally, the people system, go see, ask why, show respect, and the leadership behaviors that create more problem solvers. Now, this isn't the entire webinar, it's edited. I chose highlights that work well as audio for this podcast. Now, I'm playing clips of Peg's webinar because it was so well attended and received, and because I want you to know how much phenomenal content is available for you at moresteam.com. In this edit of the webinar, you'll hear Peg explain why lean management sounds like common sense, but it can be really hard to do. So let's go to Peg, who tells us what we need to know to succeed.
Welcome to our webinar on driving strategic alignment with the lean management system. So my former mentor, still my current mentor, his name is Peter Ward. He's an emeritus professor at Ohio State University. And he would always stress to me that the lean management system, it's deceptively difficult because everything I'm going to share today, it seems very common sense, but it takes a lot of discipline and a lot of persistence to, have your corporation follow the principles of the lean management system. So let's talk through what that is today. So it's really 4 systems when we think about the lean management system. So I'm going to start at the top today, which is our strategy system. And that's what creates alignment so that every team member knows what winning looks like. Then we're going to move into the problem-solving system. And I'll spend a lot of time here. But the problem-solving system is really how strategy becomes reality. So they're all connected, from strategy system to the problem-solving system. And the problem-solving system is the method for closing gaps identified by the strategy system. And then we talk about the daily management system, which to me, that is the heartbeat of lean management system. It creates accountability, transparency. It provides fast warnings for potential problems. And then the people system is really that glue that holds everything together. Without leaders who model the right behaviors and employees who feel supported and empowered by all the others, the systems fail. So let's go ahead and start with that strategy system. And we started where our true north is, what our strategy is, and then we're going to move into the problem-solving system and then into the daily management system, and eventually we'll finish with the people system. So these are all components. And while I start with the strategy system, that's not always how it happens in your organization. Sometimes people come into this lean management system at the problem-solving level. Let's use a structured methodology and start a problem solving system. And then they say, well, how is it connected to strategy? And how are we maintaining that system? So while I talk about it in this order, that might not be how your organization actually started down the path. As leaders set the strategy, we eventually get to this idea of true north. And you may have heard people talk about that. And what is true north? It is the long term, unchanging direction of the organization. And we want to communicate that to everybody. So we have this alignment just by whatever that saying is. This, we want to be the number one car company in the world or the best car company in the world. And people are aligned to that. But it also, once you have your true north, it helps you to know what to say no to. And we'll see why that's important here in a second. So when we think about the strategy system, it translates our high level goals into clear, meaningful targets at every level. Not lots of targets, but those few targets that are very important. And I like to think of them as what are those voice of the customer metrics that you have? Because, without our customers, we're not going to be in business. So we need to have that customer facing metric that is something that everybody can see. The problem with sometimes at this level of the organization, whether it's our customer metrics, our financial metrics, our supplier metrics, they tend to be lagging metrics. So if you think about accounting metrics or financial metrics, we have to close the books, we have to roll them up. Those are happening, we see those after the fact. And always what we're trying to do in lean, and you'll see this as I present today, we're trying to get that the people who are working in the system have leading metrics. So we're going to go from these strategic lagging metrics to leading metrics. And that is what, again, helps create alignments. So I had that picture of rocks there. These are the big rocks that we want to go after in our organization. They're few. And I think strategic alignment is less about choosing what to do and more about choosing what not to do. I know when our leadership team gets together, we're trying to add. And there's a power in subtraction. Because when you start subtracting things, you have to say what's more important. And as leaders, our capacity is finite. And lean teaches us this, that capacity is finite. And if you keep loading the system with more work, we create bottlenecks, delays, burnout. Strategic alignment requires us to intentionally remove work from the system so we can focus on those vital few. You've probably heard this before, but if everything is a priority, then nothing is. So we have our strategy, we have a few key objectives that we're trying to work on, and then we want to translate that strategy back into our problem-solving system. David Upton was a professor at Harvard. He wrote this article. This is in the, was it California Management Review? But it was an article about operations as a strategy. And there was this line in there, and I loved this. The battle is won not in the boardroom, but in laboratories, on the factory floors, and at your service counters, and in your computer rooms. And I was like, yeah, operations is so important that's where you win your customers. So I think about this, and I think strategy is ultimately won where the work is done, not where the PowerPoint is presented. So we had to get out of that, corner office once we have our strategy and get to that hard work of implementing the strategy. And that's where I think a lot of us in this, call today spend our time in the problem-solving system.
Peg just broke down the lean management system's big four: strategy, problem solving, daily management, and people. Next, she shows how real improvement gets blocked or flows depending on whether your team is stuck in old org charts or real value streams. Let's check that out.
So as we move from true north to our problem solving system, which again is where we spend a lot of our time. It's one thing to set targets, another thing to close the gap. So we think about those big rocks, and now we're going down to we want to solve problems and we want to break those up. So let's take a look first. I want to talk about the value stream. And I'm pulling some of this thinking right here from David Mann. He wrote a book called Creating the Lean Culture. And he spent a lot of time at Steelcase. He was an industrial psychologist. He really understood lean thinking. So if we think about on the left here, we have a traditional org chart. And for nearly a century, corporations have followed the structure. This was what Alfred P. Sloan codified. He was from General Motors. He wasn't the first one to have an org chart, but he kind of codified that body of knowledge with, we're going to have an engineering division, a manufacturing division, a marketing. And since then, we have all been organized that way. And the thing is, lean asks us to organize differently. They want us to, it says, organize around flow, horizontal thinking, vertical thinking on the left and horizontal thinking on the right. And I had, Pac-Man there saying the strength of the org chart, the organization in your corporation kind of eats the value stream every day. Without a really strong lean management system, even when we try to organize around value streams, we come back to that org chart. And, here's kind of why. So on the org chart side, we have authority, reporting relationships, functional responsibilities. It's administratively clear who supervises whom, the budget. It's static though, and on the value stream side, we're organized around flow, and that's flow for the customer from request to delivery. The purpose is really operational clarity, how work gets done across the company, and it's dynamic, not static. So it should continuously change as processes improve. The org chart, it's very strong, okay, because it has so much formal authority. And you might think about, I want to optimize for my function. Not in all organizations. Some companies will have a value stream leader and they are organized that way, but I'd say more often we are not. So you have a value stream that has no formal authority or improvement. You might have improvement teams, but they also have functional leaders. Measures, lots of measures within the silo, within the functions. Not as many measures that are end-to-end that we're all aligned to. So when you go from kind of the org structure to value stream thinking, we want everybody in the value stream to be organized around key performance indicators about how well the entire value stream is reporting, as opposed to how well is my function reporting. These are, things that on the org structure, they get reinforced with the hierarchy. They get reinforced with performance appraisals. All, that has a lot of strength. Whereas the value stream is more about transparency and collaboration and surfacing issues.
We've talked strategy and structure. Now here's a classic dilemma. During the webinar, Kate had a question for Peg, which I read because, did I mention I'm also the webinar facilitator? Kate's question was, if you can't roll out everything, where's the smart place to start with lean? Peg's answer might surprise you. This is from Kate. Which of the things on the LMS wheel are the critical one or order to do them if we could only give attention to one in our next 1 to 2 years to then help us eventually build into the full wheel?
Okay, so I would say instead of thinking about, hey, I want to do A3 across my entire organization, I would say, can you get to a small area of your organization and put the wheel in place? So instead of thinking, hey, let me pull something out like daily management system or problem solving or strategic thinking, I would say, is there a slice of your company that you can work to put that entire wheel in place for? And then that's going to become a benchmark, for the rest of the organization that has, because you have what your corporate strategy is, but you can come down to a plant level. They have a strategy, there we can put in problem solving, daily management system, and then of course that leads back to, the people system, and put that into place. So that would be my preference, as opposed to picking one thing and trying to go really wide, because it might seem um disconnected. And uh, this is a good question, because I remember when people first started adopting lean and learning about it, they would take 5S, which is a great principle of, we want workforce, this like cleanliness, organization, surfacing problems. But you would have consultants, let's do 5S, and kind of come in and do 5S everywhere. But it was disconnected from, why does this matter to me? Why should I do this workplace? Why should my maintenance shop be 5S? And it wouldn't sustain itself because it didn't have that broader connection. So that's why I think about, sometimes in Toyota, they call it like a model cell. You might have heard that term before, to put it in. That's a good question, Dan.
I've
Good
got
question, Kate.
Peg's advice: don't cherry pick tools, instead, build a working model. In the next clip from the webinar, Peg talks about how understand, simplify, automate keeps teams focused and change real. Plus, hear her take on why involving the people who do the work makes all of the difference.
This is something I got from my colleague, Ken Robinette, that he's our VP of business development. But I'm stealing this. I've stolen from many people, but he always talks about, with the value stream, understand, simplify, automate. And we look at that value stream, and everybody wants to come in, and especially now it's like, oh, we got all these tools, let's automate it. And it's like, let's first seek to understand, how does work flow? Why does work stop? And then we simplify. And by simplifying, I'm talking about all those great 7 ways that we learned from the lean system. Get rid of, all of the waiting, all of the defects, the inventory. Then when we have that improved value stream, start looking at, well, how can automation help us? How can some of these new tools help us improve flow? Again, I think that mapping is great because it aligns everyone to the same reality. So we have many functions that would be involved in the delivery. So then we all come together. So I think it's a team sport where we come together, have that shared reality of what the process is, what the process problems are, and how do we work to solve those. So we want to engage the people who do the work. I don't think it's particularly beneficial to have consultants come in and, go through all of this activity and then present the findings like, ta-da, here it is. Because typically at that ta-da moment, when it gets presented to the people in the process, they're like, yeah, I don't like that. Or here's a bunch of problems and with that implementation. So I would say it's better to work with the people in the system and get to like an 85% solution and have them work towards that improvement, versus having a consultant come in and do the ta-da and then have it not implemented. So from that value stream, from the map, we've broken down this problem, we've come after it, we understand. Now there's a lot of smaller rocks. We constantly want to be breaking down those rocks. So I would say choose a structured method of problem solving. There's many out there. 8D, A3, DMAIC, PDCA, they all follow the scientific method. And by that, I mean understanding what your clear gap is. What's my current state? Where is it a gap I'm closing that we have a problem? Is it a gap I'm trying to achieve? We haven't reached that level yet, but understand what that gap is and then work to root cause analysis and improve. So 8D, A3, DMAIC, PDCA, these are all forms of the scientific method. And I think it's just more important that your team adopt a methodology. These are so close and, their thinking. I think we spend more time like trying to pull them apart than saying, hey, these follow the scientific method. Let's use one consistently and thoroughly. We want to make sure that you have an owner of this and again, share those learnings. Have a method to share the learnings across the organization.
Yeah, solving problems is tough, but holding on to gains? That's even tougher. Here, Peg explains daily management routines and leader habits that keep improvements from going up in smoke. After listening to this clip, you'll understand why I said that, the whole going up in smoke thing. Take it away, Peg.
We have a strategic system, and then we come over to this daily management system. So we have the discipline of the problem solving system, but to really make it effective, we need the daily rhythm that makes gaps visible and enables kind of that rapid response and keeps improvements from eroding. So let's take a look at the daily management system. And that works in conjunction with leader standard work, which we could probably spend an hour just talking. There's so many things here we could spend an hour talking about or a whole day, but leader standard work is what enables the daily management system. So this is leaders holding themselves accountable for what do I have to do? When do I have to do it? And having that cadence of I'm going to be checking my system and understanding that real-time performance. I want to see problems as they occur. I want to, understand that we have consistent flow and stability. So to actually do that, we have to have visual controls. We have to have daily huddles. We have to have that standard work for leaders, rapid problem solving, escalation pathways. So when we have a problem and it gets to a certain level, do we know who to go to? Do we know what the response is? And we want to have clear ownership for every metric as well as follow-up routines. Daily management is really hard, okay? It provides a lot of persistence and consistent. So I have over here, that's supposed to be a circuit. So if we go in and we change a circuit, it's permanently changed. That's not typically how work is. So when we change work, say, okay, we had a fire and we doused, like remember in your best Boy Scout or Girl Scout days, you would learn, I'm going to douse that fire with water. I'm going to stir it, put sand on it, whatever. And then you could walk away. Man, there's embers. Those embers are burning. And you might walk away for an hour, 2 hours, and boom, all of a sudden you have a fire again. That's how some of our changes work. It's not like we changed the circuit and it was permanently changed. It was like we had a fire, we thought we doused it, we stirred it, we did everything, we walked away, and all of a sudden we have a raging inferno. Okay. This is why change, it is difficult and why leaders have to show that consistency of going to where the work is and saying, we made this change. We're going to be persistent and consistent about it. So culture, this is about changing culture, and habit change is much harder than technical tool adoption. So when we think about that daily management system, we're going to a huddle. And when we go to that huddle, we want to have some metrics that we're keeping track of. I would say safety, quality, lead time, cost. Pick your metrics that help you understand your flow of work. But this creates to me line of sight for all associates in the organization, because I started this and I said, hey, I want people connected to the true north of the company. And if we say, hey, I want to be the best hospital in the state or in the region. Okay, well, what does that mean to me? If I'm in, radiology or transport or, doing lab work, all of those things, translate into that's part of the process for measuring how long somebody waits in the emergency department. We can't be the best hospital in the state if we have a lot of people being left without being seen, if we have long lead times, to getting people through our systems. And if I work in the lab, then I need to understand, wow, we have to get results back in for certain things, less than 30 minutes. So that kind of translates down to me why this is important. And then ultimately, I get back to 5S. Well, gosh, our lab should be laid out in a way it's easy to me to grab my materials, my things are clean and ready to go. So I can do this process in less than 30 minutes because it's not chaotic. So I want to adopt 5S because I want to turn this around in less than 30 minutes, because that's going to help people move through the emergency department, which will help us be the best hospital in the state. So we want to translate those true north all the way down to actually where the work is done. And if we're not achieving that 30 minutes, well, then in our stand up, it will become visible to us that, we are contributing to long lead time through the hospital. So when problems, they can't be solved. So this is kind of like in this part of your organization, the daily huddle, you have that sand. Those are things that grind your gears, like long lead time, maybe a supplier misshipment, quality issues. These are not typically strategic problems. So we want to have A3s or DMAIC or 8D, things that can solve the problems that are coming up as the work is being done. So we have problems that we're trying to solve that are strategic and problems that we solve that, tend to be operational. Leaders in the middle, this can be difficult because you have to work on the business and in the business at the same time. So the best way to do that is actually solve problems in real time as they're occurring with simple tools. Pareto, trend chart, let's, solve these when they're baby alligators before they're 8-foot alligators. So we can continue to maintain flow. So Dan, that's my daily management system. And I think this is difficult because of the persistence. You have to have persistence. Like many people have started whiteboards and put up metrics, but to do it day in, day out and ask questions, I think that becomes more difficult.
We've talked about systems. Now it's time to talk about people. This final piece is all about leadership, building a coaching culture, and what's really needed for lasting change. Peg keeps it practical right to the end.
So we have the people system, and perhaps I should have started with this because, that's kind of the core. Go see. Leaders must go where the work happens to understand reality. Ask why. It's kind of the scientific thinking. So we encourage questioning, cause and effect understanding, and show respect. And respect for people is not soft. It means creating conditions where people can succeed. So other things that I think contribute to this, leaders as teachers. So the more your leaders can actually teach lean thinking, then they're not just sponsoring it. They're teaching it, they're adopting it. It reinforces their own learning and it deepens the culture. So they also have to model how to think through problems and not just provide answers. This is hard to do because leaders, they want to solve problems. That's how they got to their positions. And then we say, oh, I need you to create more problem solvers. So I'm not asking you to solve this problem quickly. I want you to question the people in the work to teach them how to solve problems. That's a big culture change. And when problems happen, you want to revert to that. I got to solve things quickly, so I tell you what to do versus asking you, what do you think you should do? Why do you think that? How do you know that? So that is a definitely culture change. And as if you're on this call, you should be practicing that, asking questions of your people. So we want to enable, that problem-solving process and develop critical thinkers. And this is how you become a learning organization. We go from, I want to solve a lot of projects to, I want to create a lot of lean thinkers, that people that can solve problems. There's this idea of psychological safety. Amy Edmonds, she's at Harvard, has written a lot about that, but we want to create a culture that's free of blaming. So we start problems. It's not naming, shaming, and blaming. It's like, let me understand what the process problem is. So when people fear being in trouble, they hide the truth, which, destroys improvement. And again, leaders, we have to have daily Gemba walks, going to where the work is done, seeing what's happening. We have to have regular coaching cycles. We have to be checking our key metrics, key process metrics, and to have a Kaizen mindset, this continuous improvement. And, lean mindset is humility, curiosity, patience, willingness to learn from the frontline staff, openness to being wrong. So our goal is communication and transparency.
That was MoreSteam President Peg Pennington helping us connect strategy, value streams, daily practice, and people. If you want more, visit MoreSteam.com and check out our resources page. It is in the show notes. And if you're a longtime listener, you might be wondering, Dan, usually by now, there's a short break. Well, process improvement is all about experimentation. So for the first time, we're going to experiment with putting that short break at the end of the show. MoreSteam's enterprise process improvement platform includes the tools, training, and software you need to transform your organization into a problem-solving powerhouse. Join the ranks of Fortune 500 companies that trust MoreSteam for their enterprise process improvement. Visit MoreSteam.com to learn more. Also, I want to take just a moment to thank you for listening to Quality Time with MoreSteam. You can email the show at qualitytime@moresteam.com. And if you're enjoying the show, please leave a rating or review on your favorite podcast service. We'll be back in 2 weeks with another great episode. Thanks again.